about the slight delay. Welcome to the Australian Chamber of Commerce seminar titled Holistic Learning, Character Education and Excursions. My name's Aaron Fennell. I'm the co-chair of the AusCham Education and Training Committee, along with one of AusCham's life members, Brian O'Reilly. I'm also the moderator of this event. With me is Miss Nan Nguyen. She is the Hanoi AusCham office manager and also a fellow member of the Education Committee. AusCham is hosting this event to help bring together a community of educators. The Education Committee covers all educational sectors, including secondary schools, vocational education, and the tertiary sector, as well as non-formal education. Plus, it includes companies geared to workplace learning. AusCham is a business chamber that connects people and brings extra value to companies. And in the same way today, each presentation is an introduction to a possible value add for your school. I personally have a deep affinity for the presentations today. My own background is in outdoor learning. I am the executive director of Outward Bound in Vietnam. We're a social enterprise that provides outdoor learning experiences for students and team building programs for companies. Outward Bound is a global network of schools and has the same founding father as two other institutions presenting today, Round Square and the Duke of Edinburgh's International Award. That founder was Kurt Hahn. Here in Vietnam, Outward Bound is registered by the Department of Education and Training as a life skills provider, and that leads me to mention the title for today. We came up with the title Holistic Learning as an umbrella term to help describe all the institutions that aim to enhance the individual student beyond just a conventional academic curriculum. Some of the presentations today focus on these life skills or soft skills, others on character education and curriculum, field trips, and social and emotional learning. Many of these institutions may include experiential education, which is a pedagogy involving both direct experience and intentional reflection. All aim to make students into better global citizens and the world a better place. As a business chamber, I would like to mention that the World Economic Forum, from their website, the 21st Century Skills, that every student needs include competencies such as communication and problem solving, as well as character qualities such as initiative, grit, leadership, and cultural awareness. That's what these presenters today can bring to your school: more successful students with 21st century skills that are globally relevant and make the world a better place. Just a few housekeeping pointers for today. The format is a series of 15-minute presentations. Each presentation has 5 minutes of Q&A after that. And then there will be an extra 5 minutes Q&A halfway through this seminar and again at the end of the seminar. There's a chat box that you can find. It's open for comments. You find a chat box just at the bottom of your screen there. We'll be referring to that for any questions, and we also have a few questions prepared for each of the presenters as well. For reference, the presentations will be shared via the AusCham YouTube site next week. And finally, we've made some pre-recordings of the sessions just in case there's internet connectivity concerns. However, each of these presenters is here right now presenting live as well. Again, the seminar title is Holistic Learning, Character Education and Excursions, and each of the presentations will highlight options for your school. The full lineup and details are available on the AusCham website and via your registration link, and we have an afternoon of presenters who are passionate supporters of their institutions ready to go. Now, I would like to introduce Ben George, the first presenter for the day. You can find Ben's full biography in the link to the brochure on the website. Ben has been working in experiential education for over 2 decades. An interesting fact, not in the profile, Ben mentioned that his father used to run an Outward Bound centre in the UK, and back in the 1970s, he first met Kurt Hahn there. Welcome, Ben, over to you.
Thank you very much, Aaron, for that brief but very poignant introduction. Can I just get a thumbs up from my panelists if we can see the big red screen, and if you can hear me okay? Fantastic. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's really fantastic to be here speaking with all you this afternoon. First and foremost, I'd just like to acknowledge thanks to Aaron, to Nan, and to the team at the Australian Chamber of Commerce in Vietnam for giving Round Square this opportunity to speak with you this afternoon. So my name is Ben George, and I'm the Regional School Support Director for Round Square in Australasia and East Asia. And what I'd like to do this afternoon is to give you an introduction to who Round Square is, what Round Square is as a membership organisation, and potentially what the value proposition may be for your school in considering joining the Round Square movement. So what is Round Square? Round Square simply is a global network of schools which are committed to a philosophy and a practice of quality character education and experiential learning, focused through a lens of what we call our 6 ideals. There are 6 things which are central to Round Square as an organisation, and those 6 things are then thus central to schools that are member schools of the Round Square network. That is international understanding, really driving cross-cultural competency in students, cross-cultural connections. Democracy, not so much from a political standpoint, but from a standpoint of encouraging student voice, student agency, student engagement in decision-making at schools, and an understanding of the responsibility that comes with decision-making potential and opportunity. Environmental stewardship, encouraging students to more so become stewards of the environment. Adventure, not so much from a practical perspective. Outdoor education and outdoor activities and experiences, yes, they are powerful learning experiences, but more to encourage risk-taking, encouraging students to be always finding ways to step out of their comfort zone and have their own adventures. To encourage leadership, not so much amongst students as a position, but as a set of behaviours. And lastly, the 6th pillar of ours, which is service, and probably the most important of ours, really helping our students in our member schools to understand how they can be more helpful and less harmful. We are bound together by a philosophical commitment to these ideals, but also a practical commitment. And so, as I said, we are a network. Our network spans 53 countries and 223 schools currently, and they are divided into 6 regions in the world. So our region, or the region that Vietnam sits inside, and the region that I am the school support director for, is Australasia and East Asia. And we have schools in Japan, South Korea, China, Hong Kong, Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Australia, and New Zealand. So right at the core of Round Square Schools is a commitment to experiential learning. And as Aaron mentioned at the beginning, experiential learning is not just learning by doing. There's many examples around the world. If you just simply open the newspaper or turn on the TV and watch the news, there's a fantastic set of examples on a daily basis of the fact that we don't simply learn by doing things, because there's a lot of things that we keep doing, which we maybe should stop doing. But experiential learning is really that process of being engaged in active experience, encouraging students to process that, encouraging students to reflect on what that means to them, and providing them with opportunities to transfer that learning to new situations. Now, while typically experiential learning is seen as in the domain of outdoor education or outdoor pursuits, yes, experiential learning works really well in the outdoor environment. But we as Round Square and for Round Square schools really like to try and see experiential learning used in the widest range of activities and experiences for students as possible, to facilitate not just personal development outcomes, but maybe to facilitate academic outcomes. And not so much as well in, say, the outdoor education space, but to be used in other subject areas, in the academics, in the arts. And so experiential learning as a teaching and learning methodology is something that we try to promote, and all of our schools are champions of. So what are there are 3 things that Round Square is really typically known for. We're known for our conferences. In 2020, we actually had 20 physical conferences planned. Unfortunately, all of those were cancelled. However, since then, we've run 17 virtual conferences online. And typically what would happen is one of our schools would step forward to be a host. That school would then organise a student committee that would design and then prepare for that conference. And so student agency and student leadership is really central to our conference process. We're known for student exchanges. Student exchange and the opportunity to be able to go and live and learn in another culture is a real central part of Round Square Schools. Round Square as an organisation not only supports schools and promotes exchanges, but we actively facilitate exchanges between schools in different parts of the world. And in doing so, we provide support for schools in the development of their administrative processes and risk management processes around managing effective exchange. Exchange as well for teachers. One of the great things about Round Square Schools is there is this real shared value system and a shared camaraderie. So we often find teachers exchanging, and also we find that heads of school tend to use sabbatical time to visit other Round Square Schools and trying to find out what they're doing. The third thing we're known for, which also has been on hold during the pandemic, is our international service projects. Typically, we would run 3 of these every year, and we would have 50 students from about 25 different nationalities, different parts of the world, coming together to work on independent service projects together. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to run any of those in the last couple of years, as many things have been thrown to the wall. However, we do have plans in place to kick off our international service projects in the middle of next year. So those are the 3 core things that we're really historically known for: conferences, exchanges, and international service projects. But there is so much more to being a Round Square School. Just recently, in the last couple of years, we've seen the emergence of virtual exchanges. Virtual exchanges have been found to be far more inclusive. Exchange is still expensive. People need to travel, but also students that typically wouldn't step forward to put themselves forward for a physical exchange. What we found is that students tend to step forward more easily for a virtual exchange. Our schools that take this really seriously are looking at implementing virtual exchange as a long-term program, as a precursor to physical exchange going forwards. Virtual conferencing. As I said, since 2020, we've run 17 virtual conferences. And in the spirit of experiential learning, we've learned a lot from that experience. Some things we won't do ever again. Other things have been amazing, and we really want to carry those forward. So next year, the beginning of the year, we actually have 6 virtual conferences, each focused around one of our ideals, with a hope to our physical conferencing kicking off and beginning in September next year. Collaboration between schools, collaboration in the academic space. One of the things that I mentioned at the beginning was that we like to see the ideals come to life, not just in the co-curricular programs, but we like to see the ideals come to life throughout all facets of the school. One of the things that we've experienced through the pandemic with the greater use of the online space is a lot of academic collaborations between schools, sharing of data, collection of data, sharing of different perspective on topics and projects. We've developed something called Zoom postcards, which I will tell you a little bit more about at the moment. And that was something that started simply as a bit of a band-aid to no travel and getting students together. But as a learning and growing organisation, that has evolved into something which is now going to become a long-term feature of ours going forwards. As an organisation, we also organise, as well as encouraging schools to work collaboratively on academic projects and cross-curricular collaborations. As an organisation, we've designed a number of specific Round Square challenges that schools can take part in. We also really actively promote good practice sharing. So annually, we run a forum for each region, which is typically a 2-day event. Recently, these have been done virtually, but traditionally they would be a 2-day event where our schools would come together regionally for good practice sharings around how they're promoting the ideals inside of their school. So a little bit more of a focus on a couple of things that we are offering as direct services to schools. So outwardly, obviously, we have exchanges, we have conferences, we have service projects, But inwardly, how are we supporting schools to develop the ideals inside of their schools? Round Square challenges. We've recently developed a filmmaking project with Waterbear, which is the social justice and an environmental streaming film streaming platform. That's a student-led project. The winner of that project will actually have their film broadcast at the Aegean Film Festival, supported by Waterbear. The Round Square Ideals challenges as well. They are teaching packages designed to introduce each one of the ideals in either the classroom context or in the co-curricular space. So these are direct resources that schools can use to enhance the implementation of the ideals in their classrooms. And these two QR codes will actually take you to the spaces on our website where all of this information is actually open source. So you don't actually need to be a member to access these resources, because as far as we're concerned, we would like to see the ideals grow in all of our schools. The Zoom postcards. I'd like to share with you a little bit more about this. As tongue-in-cheek as the name is, it's been a fantastic experience for us. At the beginning of the pandemic, we said, let's just get some students together on Zoom, have a conversation. Students working together and building cross-cultural competence is something that's really important to us. What that very quickly evolved into was schools choosing a theme and running a session led by students for 90 minutes. And now we have no free spaces on a Wednesday until August next year. It's all fully booked up. Each of our Zoom postcard sessions invites up to 50 schools to send 6 students, and it is hosted by a host school. They have ranged from a primary school hosting a session on responsibility, where students brought their pets and introduced their pets and talked about the notion of responsibility. At the other end of the spectrum, we had a school in India which was really concerned about the cultural context of the Black Lives Matter movement in India and whether they should be talking about the caste system in India as opposed to the Black Lives Matter movement. And they hosted a very, very interesting Zoom postcard on talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion from a cultural context. So at either end of the spectrum, this has been a really rich experience for us. We've also developed what we call our Round Square Discovery Framework. The Round Square Discovery Framework essentially is a process that we went through as an organisation to ask ourselves, what do Round Square learners look like? What are the attributes and traits that really define a Round Square learner? We processed that as an organisation and asked a group of heads of school and teachers to come together, and we spent a week in the UK workshopping this process. It wasn't something that we drew from research from a university, and it wasn't something we drew from another organisation. We simply looked inwardly and asked ourselves, what do Round Square learners look like? This as a framework now has been used and is used in schools in a variety of different ways. Some middle years curriculums have been completely redesigned using this program. Some schools use it to give a bit of sense to disparate teaching and learning frameworks. Some organisations, some schools use this to create value in their co-curricular programs. Probably most importantly, we as an organisation use that to create a common language about what we value and what we feel is important in terms of student growth and student learning. In summary, what we love the most is we love opportunities to the network. We are a strong global network of really diverse schools and really diverse cultures. And that networking and that opportunity to collaborate together is something that we really cherish. Because we're such a diverse network and because we collaborate together, we really love the opportunity to share good practice. Currently, I'm facilitating a number of concierge relationships, one between a school in Okinawa in Japan and a school very close to my home here in the Sunshine Coast of Australia. And that's sharing around how primary school students can grapple with the notion of diversity and inclusion. We really love internationalizing the student experience. That Zoom postcard has been something that's really enabled us to do that. We really love student and teacher exchange. That engages students and teachers in bringing ideas from other schools back to their schools and enhancing what they do. And probably most importantly, we love being part of something bigger. We are an idealistic organisation, and we believe firmly that if we continue to encourage schools to focus on those 6 ideals, and if we continue to engage students collaboratively from cross-cultural environments, we do believe we can make the world a better place. It's been really great to share with you. I hope that wasn't too much information in a short space of time. If you'd like to ask any questions, I understand that maybe there's a few minutes for you to do that now. However, please feel free to take my contact details, which are obviously on the slide here. Send me an email if you'd like to have a conversation, or if you'd like to, you can go to our website and complete a membership inquiry, which is, there's obviously no commitment, strings attached, as I would say, because being around Square School and becoming around Square School, for some schools is a short process, but for other schools, it's a longer process. We are committed to supporting any school that would be interested to join the movement, because we see it as a growth process for all. So thank you very much. Once again, thanks to Aaron and his team. It's been great to talk to you.
Thanks. Thanks so much, Ben. That was Ben George from Round Square Schools. Folks, in the chat column, you can ask any questions and also a Q&A area. I've just got a couple of questions to get Ben started. Ben, you just touched on it at the end there. How long does it normally take to become a Round Square School on average?
Oh, that's a tough question. And very quickly, how long is a piece of string? However, so for some schools, there are very, very long-standing committed schools that have strong experiential learning and character development programs, becoming a Round Square School can often be an affirmation and a commitment to then say, what does the next 10 years look like for us? Whereas other schools may be quite in their infancy stage. And so what we will do is we will then sit down with the school and work out not a growth plan, but have a discussion about what are the things that they wish to achieve through becoming a Round Square School? How can they work on them? And what are the things that we believe they should do prior to completing the membership form? So that for each school, it is really a growth process. For some schools, it supports them on the beginning of their journey because their commitment is exactly the same as the long-standing school that is joining as an affirmation. But I won't not try to answer your question. We normally explore processes between a year to 18 months. That tends to be the general period of time that membership inquiries and applications run through.
Excellent. And once a school is a member school, what does the ongoing maintenance look like?
What does the ongoing maintenance look like? I mean, that as well is a really good question. Probably the most important question that we ask in evaluation and consideration of membership is, what is the school's capacity to engage with the movement and to be able to make use of the resources? Because what that then means is going forwards, the school is able to be an active member, to work with me as the school support director, to make connections with other schools. And so therefore, the ongoing maintenance then tends to be quite organic and natural. If schools go quiet, I tend to kind of go and knock on the door and say, how's things going? Can I support you in any way? But particularly what we're finding at this moment and in the last couple of years, schools that are becoming Round Square Schools are far more interested in engaging a connection across the entire school rather than in just one area. Very quickly, more structurally, I tend to try to make contact with all of our 72 schools in this region once a month, at least, at the very least. And we have an annual affirmation process, which needs to be completed as part of the membership agreement. And then we also have a 5-year reflection process. We never have a re-evaluation. And we're quite careful about the use of those words. I'm not sure if that answered your question. No,
it does. It's terrific. So I've seen some Round Square schools on the marketing materials, and they list the logo right up there with other accreditation schemes that they've got front and center. Just out of curiosity, can you share where the name comes from?
I can share where the name comes from. I chose not to delve into our history too much because it doesn't warrant a 1-minute quick chat. It's very powerful piece of history, but where the name comes from. So Round Square was not founded, but the founding of Round Square was influenced by Kurt Hahn. He is not the founder of Round Square. And a group of teachers that were heads of schools that had been students or worked with Kurt Hahn came together in 1962 and said, wouldn't it be good if we shared in the same commitment that existed at Gordonstoun's and Salem, which are the two schools that he founded very early in his educational pioneering days. Round Square is nothing to do with thinking outside the box. At Gordonstoun's, there is a building that is square on the outside and round on the middle. And that is why the organisation is called the Round Square.
That's terrific, Ben. Thanks so much. And we just got time for one more question. And so I just wanted to ask, in terms of the service projects and students going offshore to do that, is it reasonable for schools to go short haul, or do most schools normally go long haul, as in, across continents, or would it be reasonable for some schools in terms of costs and so forth to just go to nearby countries?
Yeah, I mean, so one answer to that question would be that when I'm working with schools and discussing their annual plans and they're talking, we'd like to send some students to the International Service Project, what I would then start to do is I said, well, where are you going to send them? Because, say, for example, a school in Hong Kong, St. Paul's Co-Educational College, if they said, we're just going to send them to the project in Thailand, I'd say, well, culturally, why don't we try and explore to go somewhere different? So there is that dialogue with me to try to encourage schools. The other thing is to look in our region, that we have a lot of cultural diversity in our region, and to be encouraging our schools to go to places that they haven't experienced before. When we were able to travel, we saw a lot of cross-continental travel. And we work quite hard, particularly with our international service, the ones that we run, to ensure that there is a really rich diversity of students in each one of those project sites, because that really is one of the key pieces, is students from different cultures coming together under a shared banner.
Terrific, Ben. That's great. I think that's us for the first session. Thank you very much for your time. That's Ben George from Round Square. Folks, up next, we have David Gregory and Paul Taime from Excursions. Excursions is an Australian company that provides excursion risk management services, including teacher training. Collectively, David and Paul have nearly 50 years experience in outdoor education and have worked with the largest and most prestigious schools and providers of outdoor education around the world. As a background, I first saw Paul present way back in the 1990s. It's great to reconnect again. Over to you, Paul and David.
Oh, just trying to unmute now. Excellent. Thank you very much for that, Aaron. And no, wonderful to be on here. And it was great to hear so many, because Kurt Hahn's been a big part of certainly what I've been doing, and certainly what, and I'm sure Paul has too, is that experiential education, the foundation of what is such a positive experience for kids and sets them up for success. So we're just going to have a little bit of a chat through some of the things that we do to help support that. So whenever we go outside of the classroom to run any sort of experiential education programs, whether we run outdoor ed, whether we run service learning, whether we run international travel, there is a level of inherent risk involved with that. And if we can plan for and effectively manage that, the size and scope of the programs that we can run can be dramatically greater. And so Paul and I will just run through a little bit of that with you. So some of the advantages of managing risk is it does also create another transferable skill for life. And so we're going to go, you probably, as teachers, you've probably been asked to write a risk assessment at some point in time. Now, we're not going to tell you how to write a risk assessment. We won't go through all of that. But what we're going to chat about is looking at culture. How do you help build that risk management culture and that way of thinking? Because it really is a valuable skill that kids can become part of as well, and it actually reduces the risk of your program. So specific training also helps build this culture within your organisation, and it reduces incidents and critical mistakes. it helps you go through a process of really good positive decision making so that you can run great expeditions, camps, excursions and activities. And it also empowers staff to be confident, knowing that they're clear on what they're doing and how they're doing it when they're responsible for groups of students and their welfare and well-being. So that's just a quick introduction, and I'll hand over to Paul just to chat around how do we start to build this culture of risk management. And we're talking about how do we look at positive cultures. So over to you, Paul.
Thanks, David. So as you can see, a lot of our risk management is not just creating boundaries and creating programs and standard operating practices, but getting folks to buy into what they're actually doing. And you've probably all seen it where someone writes a risk management plan and they say, great, I've got my risk management plan, and then it goes on the shelf and then no one ever looks at it. So we're trying to create a more proactive approach to risk management and getting our clients and our teachers and our administrators and all those other third parties involved as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw it out to you folks. And where have you seen a positive culture, not just in risk management, but in leadership or creating that engagement with students? So if you want to throw it into chat, David's going to monitor chat for us, or you can just tell us now, like, where have you seen a really, really positive, engaging culture? And how did that occur for you? And I'll give you a really good example. We were just working with a school, and the headmaster literally walks around the school and chats with the kids. In fact, he knows every single student's name. And if he forgets your name, he actually gives you a Freddo frog. And so he walks around the school and literally has a pocket of Freddo frogs and rarely actually has to give them out. And so just those little things create that positive culture. He knows their names. He is on the ground seeing what's happening out there. So any good ideas out there about what creates positive culture, or what have you seen out there? And you can put it in the chat or just talk to us right now. So one of the things we like to see here is that, what have you got out there, David?
I can't, when I'm sharing my screen, I can't actually get to the Q&A. Sorry, I didn't realize that.
That's all right.
But one of the things, certainly with my programs, and one of the programs that I've run before, was we had a residential program and we would get a new staff in, a new team in every single time. Now, I was part of this program and have been part of this program for 10 years. Every single program we ran was dramatically different because we, even though we set the tone at the start, it was getting people understanding, well, this is about community. This is about looking out for each other and looking after each other. And it was those clear expectations that we set from the start that really built that culture and how the kids interacted with each other, how the staff interacted with the kids, and how we actually approached things. And I'll flick over to the next slide, because it's looking at how do you set that tone? If you're taking a multi-day expedition, what are the expectations? And if there's those clear expectations, it can significantly reduce the number of incidents or number of concerns that you might have even before you go out. So back to you, Paul.
Yeah, so one of the big things that we want to stress as far as excursions is concerned is that it's not just about creating those, those standard operating practices and making sure that we've dotted every I and crossed every T, is that we're engaging our staff, we're engaging the students even. And it's been really fascinating to see schools that actually bring the students in as part of that experiential process and say, great, so what are some considerations or some guidelines around how you should behave on this trip? Be it a 3-hour, expedition out to a museum or an art gallery, or be it a 25-day leaving the country international trip. And so we always see a far greater adherence to those risk management sort of systems. if the students have actually had a say in it. And if we, and you know, it's a bit like that whole speeding thing, and we often use this a lot with a lot of our programs. It's like we often ask, how many people would speed and break the speed limit if you knew you weren't going to get caught? And like you're running late for a meeting and you know there's no police on the road and you know you're not going to get caught, how many folks would actually, you know, break the law and maybe speed just a little bit? And of course, most of the room puts their hand up, of course, right? And one of the reasons is because we're not probably bought in or not culturally, you know, connected to that rule about speeding and keeping under 55 kilometers an hour or whatever it is. And so we do the same thing with our students. It's like, great, let's try and get them to be culturally engaged with why we ask them not to leave their hotel rooms at night or not go off to places where they shouldn't be at nighttime. And we can often have a really good conversation. And like David said, it actually helps set not just a culture of risk management during that trip, but maybe even after they've left school. It's like, great, you know, how do I rationalize with my friends about making safe decisions? Anyway, go, David.
Excellent. Well, the next thing we're going to quickly look at is the difference between perceived risk and real risk. And as Ben mentioned in his presentation, we also want kids to take risks. Now, we need to be really clear that everything that we're doing in experiential education, everything that we should be doing in education requires a level of risk-taking, because kids don't grow and we don't grow if we don't step outside our comfort zones. So let's have a quick look at what the difference between perceived risk and real risk is. And there's a dramatic difference. So the perceived risk is something that feels risky to us. So we mightn't be comfortable with doing something, and it could be public speaking to an audience. That could be one of the things that is something that is really, really risky to people. But then we have real risk. Now, real risk is dangerous risk. Now, it could be driving down continue with the speeding scenario, driving down the street as fast as you can on the wrong side of the road. Now, this is really dangerous. But we need to split off. In education, we need to look at, well, what are the perceived risks? How do we build this into our activities? What do we see as real risks? And so try in the chat. I'll get Paul to check the chat. But if you could just throw something in that you think is a really risky thing that could happen out on an expedition, an excursion, or an activity. And we're talking, what do you think could be a real risk? So just give you 20 seconds, throw something in the chat. What's a real risk that could happen when you're taking a group of students away from the school grounds?
Excellent. So we're seeing, oh, wow. Yep. See, we're seeing students lost, students leaving the group. Yep. That's a great one. Travel accidents. Yep. And so there's some really good ones there, David. Drowning, yeah, that's a real risk indeed. So Dave, we had drowning, getting lost, students leaving the group, and I'm just going to scroll back up and see those other ones. People were really good. Thanks everyone for contributing to those. So a student injures themselves, a bus accident, and traffic accidents.
Yeah, so no, fantastic, really, really key, critical, dangerous risks that can and do happen on any of these activities, and have happened on programs that I've run and Paul have run as well. And so we want to reduce this sort of risk. And I'm glad nobody put abseiling, because abseiling is actually one of the safest activities. If it's set up and run well, it's one of the safest activities because there are so many checks in place to do that. Whereas, as you rightly noted, transport can be really a dangerous risk. So we're just checking our vehicles. Another risk can be losing a student. It's a really big risk. So it's putting those structures and systems in place ready so that we can avoid those dangerous risks and then really work on what's the perceived risk. And if a kid's going down, say, an abseil, the first step over the edge might be the biggest, riskiest thing for them. but it builds confidence, and it helps them really grow as an individual. So that's just a tiny snippet of some of the things that we do in terms of helping teachers and schools run these really great programs. So whenever we're running any sort of programs with an external provider, or we're running them in-house, or however we're trying to improve and run co-curricular programs for our kids, we provide that sort of training for schools and teachers to build their confidence. We do have a couple of, we also have not been able to run our face-to-face programs for a while. We do currently have 4 online courses. And so everything from how to write risk assessments, so really straightforward, simple risk management concepts. Then outsourcing. So what happens if you engage a third-party provider? What if you're engaging an external contractor? How do you work with them to ensure that everyone's communicating well and things are running well? We have a Duke of Ed Adventurous Journey Risk Management Training course, and then an annual refresher course, just to bring it back to everyone's front of mind. So I think we're at time. So thank you very much for your time and the opportunity to present to you guys.
Hey, David, do you have that worksheet that you were going to give them that you can send out?
Yes, excellent. Thank you, Paul, for reminding me. I do have a worksheet that I'll drop in the chat. And what it has, and you giving you homework, I'm sorry, but it just has, it's a couple of pages just to do a bit of a self-reflection and look at your own programs. There's nothing else required. You don't need our help or anything, but it's just looking at some of those things and rating them and going, okay, we're doing really well here. This might be a point for improvement, but we're doing really, really well here, just to see how you're tracking. So I'll throw that in the chat so you have that, which you can use at your school.
Excellent. Thanks, David. Yeah, and so even on this PowerPoint, I think it was on like slide 4 or 5, David had some, a place for us to like write down some key takeaways. And for a lot of us, it's really hard to cover every single risk that we might see out there. And so it's really nice sometimes just to sit down and go, great, what are some things that we need to work on? Or we just had a program come back and it wasn't run as well as we wanted to, or it was run really well. What are some key takeaways? Like, what do those teachers do that really enhance that risk management? Everyone was really, had a great time, but also the students were challenged. And it's a really fine balance sometimes to get those students to be engaged and challenged and to be a little scared at times, because we know that that's in that growth circle, that's where the real learning will happen. And so that's our job. And we actually really, really love what we do as far as engaging with staff and engaging with schools and parents and the students themselves to try and create those really positive learning environments. Great. And we can answer any questions now. But Aaron, it's great to see you too. I can't believe it's been 20 years or so that I was standing up in front of that Outward Bound crew.
That's right. Thank you very much, David and Paul. We've got some questions that we'd like to ask. I've got just 1 or 2 that I'd like to kick off with, if you may. Yes, sir. I suppose the first thing I'd like to just highlight or touch base on is that, often with schools, when they do excursions and they go to a third-party vendor, they may think that the vendor will just take care of everything. And that due diligence sort of piece is also subcontracted out. From your view, how do you communicate to schools that piece for them?
That's you've hit the nail on the head there, Aaron, because that's one of the biggest misconceptions, is that we've contracted out our program and say we've contracted out to OB. OB is responsible for everything. And that's the biggest misconception. And that was why we ended up doing that how to outsource training course. But we really clearly run through, okay, well, how do you communicate risk with your third-party provider? And I think that's critical. How do you get on the same page? What's your conversation straight up front is, what am I responsible for? What are we contracting out? And have that clearly in writing. And I think that's such an important takeaway, that it is that communications piece that you're both understanding, well, who's responsible for what? Well, I thought you were, and this is where you avoid those gray areas. Oh, I thought you were supervising the kids tonight. Oh, why are they poking sticks in the fire and they're running around with fire sticks? I thought you were doing it. So it really is just effective communications is probably one of the key ways that we train to work for schools to work with external providers, because external providers can, they're experts in a field. They're really great experts in a certain area and add such huge value to schools. Terrific.
And so I'd like to talk about the software that you have. But before that, I just want to touch base a little bit more, a deeper dive on the teacher training that you do. I realize that it's on your website, but can you just quickly share, is that in person or is that online? I know you quickly had the slide up, but it wasn't there for very long. So it'd be good to just elaborate on that a bit further.
No worries.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, go, Paul. You.
Okay, no worries. So we would prefer to be face to face. I think we tend to run far more engaging and interactive programming where we can break groups up, and oftentimes we can get a number of teachers from one school, and we can run a presentation and then get them to break into those groups and say, great, how does this last topic affect your school and the way that your leadership team works and the communication systems at your school works? And then we can get all those teachers back into a group and we can brainstorm around ideas. And so, as we all know, being face-to-face creates relationships, and we can delve into things a lot more. And we can have that more organic process of answering questions. And it's really amazing to have those conversations over coffee at lunch. And we can actually sit down with someone and actually dig into what's going on with them. But I think, like Ben mentioned this as well, I think, the whole, the Zoom platform has actually stretched us a lot. And I think we've come up with some pretty creative ways of engaging. And, obviously, if we could break out into chat rooms on Zoom, or we could use our whiteboard on Zoom, we've actually run some pretty interactive programs that we could actually get folks to break out of these main groups, go into those subgroups and create some more meaning for them in those smaller, more personalized groups. David, go ahead.
Yeah, and so at the moment we're just basically offering the online training because you can do it anywhere, and they're self-paced. So that was our response to COVID, because we literally booked a training program a week before the world shut down, and so we haven't run one since. So we moved everything into these sort of bite-sized chunks online, where teachers can go at their own pace. Yeah.
And just one final thing, the software that you have, can you just talk about that very briefly?
Yeah, so I created a piece of software called Excursion software. And so I created that in response to my own challenges. So basically it's a mobile app where teachers can have all of their kids' medical details, their dietary requirements, mum and dad's emergency contacts, any allergies, their swimming abilities. So all of those key medical bits of information that you need on a student, they can have at their fingertips. So we created a secure app, and it sends out a permission note, the parents give permission, and ultimately the teacher has it on their phone. So when they take the group away on any sort of excursion or activity, they've got their kids' details right there so they can respond quickly and effectively, which the idea hit me when I was sitting in a hospital waiting room once. I won't tell you that story, but it sparked the idea. It's like, that makes perfect sense. This would be really handy. And so we built it from that.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. David and Paul, that's it for us right now. We'll have some more questions that are possible at the intermission at the end of Sarah's session. And so Sarah Blackmore from Fieldwork Education is up next. Fieldwork Education is the fastest growing independent primary curriculum in the world. Of all the institutions presenting today, Fieldwork also has the widest uptake in Vietnam. A quick note on Sarah. Sarah Blackmore is Fieldwork Education's Head of International Curriculum. She's based in Singapore, but has been working across Asia for over a decade. And she previously owned an education company in China. Her colleague, Linh Dong, is also present today. And Linh is the local Vietnam representative for Fieldwork Education based here in Hanoi. Welcome, Sarah.
Hi, thank you, Aaron. Can you hear me okay?
We can do, yes.
Yeah, I'm hoping you can see my slides. Are they showing okay?
They're crystal clear.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you for the opportunity to participate and to actually maybe take a slightly broader consideration of curriculum supporting holistic education. My name is Sarah Blackmore. Thank you for the introduction, Aaron. I'm head of the International Curriculum Association, which is part of Fieldwork Education. And Fieldwork Education are the providers of the international curriculum for early years, primary and middle years. And as you say, we have quite a footprint in Asia and in Vietnam schools as well. We've worked in collaboration with Global Education on this particular set of information around global competence. And I'd just like to thank Catherine Copeland in her absence from Global Education for her support on this. I'm going to take my video off so you can concentrate on my slides. Okay. So the outbreak of COVID-19 across the world has actually profoundly altered almost all aspects of our life, including education. During such challenging times, the focus of online learning has brought ideas about how we educate our students to the forefront of educational debate. And the impact of COVID has actually given us an opportunity to rethink the path that we need to take going forward. It's not difficult to see that global competence learning is really necessary for healthy future of our students and not least our planet. Our challenge then has been to minimize as far as possible the negative impact within our schools that the pandemic is having on learning and schooling. And as education systems cope with the crisis, they need to recognize some of the factors that influence how education can recover, including those listed here on the screen. It's about the best kind of recovery, developing a greater sense of the individual, the national and the global responsibility, using digital innovation and the power of student voice to make changes a force for good. Education in global competence can boost employability as young people become able to investigate and develop a position about an issue of local or global significance, collaborate in culturally diverse teams and appreciate different perspectives and languages. Perhaps most importantly, in today's increasingly diverse societies, educating for global competence can promote cultural awareness and respectful interaction with others. The Fieldwork Education curriculums recognise the twofold purpose of what is an OECD perspective, that children need to develop an understanding of identity, local culture, citizenship, but also develop a growing capacity to take perspective, to communicate across differences, and to take action collaboratively and creatively to help solve political, economic, and environmental challenges. I think over the last few years, we've seen leading educators calling for global and intercultural competence as a desirable outcome of what we refer to as 21st century education. In 2017, the OECD launched a new framework for educating for global competence at Harvard Project Zero. And the framework outlines global competence as a core educational aim for our times. The OECD definition, global competence, is the capacity to examine local, global and intercultural issues, to understand and appreciate perspectives and worldviews of others, to engage in open, appropriate and effective interactions with people from different cultures, and to act for collective well-being and sustainable development. There are the four areas of the wheel, as we can see on the screen, the outside circle emphasising skills, knowledge, values and attitudes. Let's look at each of the dimensions from OECD to see how we can develop global competence. The first highlighting a willingness and a capacity to consider global problems from multiple viewpoints as individuals acquire knowledge about others' culture, histories, values, communication styles, beliefs and practices. They begin to recognise that their perspectives and behaviours are shaped by many influences. Globally competent people can adapt their behaviour and communication to interact with individuals from different cultures. They can engage in respectful dialogue, want to understand the other and try to include marginalised groups. This dimension emphasises individuals' capacity to bridge differences with others by communicating in ways that are appropriate and effective. And thirdly, this dimension focuses on young people's role as active and responsible members of society, referencing individuals' readiness to respond to local, global or intercultural issues or situations, recognising young people not only have an impact on personal and local situations, but also a voice on global issues. So how can schools promote this global competence, and what are we doing to support them? The shock of COVID-19 on education has been an undeniable seismic upheaval, but we still see schools that are teaching are in a unique position to influence the future, even if that teaching is hybrid or online, or in fact has had a hiatus in its implementation. Schools can provide opportunities for young people to critically examine developments that are significant to both the world and their own lives. They can teach students how to use digital information and social media platforms critically and responsibly. And they can encourage intercultural respect through engagement in experiences that nurture an appreciation for diverse people, languages, and cultures. So one way to start is to think about the UN Sustainable Development Goals. The 17 SDGs, an urgent call for action by all countries, developed by the Global Partnership, recognise that ending poverty and other deprivations have to go hand in hand with strategies that improve health and education, reduce inequality, and spur economic growth, whilst tackling climate change and working to preserve oceans and forests and our planet's environment. This is the UN SDG Manifesto. It's a powerful tool for students to imagine the future. I think few of us would argue with the aims and goals set out on this. Global competence is now included as a new domain in the Programme for International Student Assessment, PISA, an influential international large-scale test of 15-year-old students' achievement, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. How can we support young people to understand who they are in this interconnected world, preparing them to consider multiple perspectives as they collaborate with others across cultures? Well, many schools, and indeed many governments, are now turning to the implementation of the SDGs as guidance for deepening global competence. So what can we do in schools? Here's an example from the international curriculum from Fieldwork Education. Boxman, Siller and Jackson define global competence as the capacity and disposition to understand and act on issues of global significance, identifying 4 key competencies: investigate the world, recognise perspectives, communicate ideas and take action. It's this approach that Fieldwork Education International curriculum has embedded into its international learning dimension for all 3 curriculum, for early years, for primary and for middle years. So looking at and defining ideas, missions and motivations from a global perspective also has an impact on the pedagogy in the practice in our schools. And we need to think about the student perspective on global competence. When designing curriculums, it's always a great idea to start with the objectives. What is it we want students to learn? So we want our students and our future citizens to be change makers, global citizens, to demonstrate student agency, to be internationally minded. How can we get there? The many pedagogies and curricula that develop global competence are what we refer to as global education. And around many different definitions and descriptions, there is one constant, that global education is about deepening critical thinking about global issues. Referenced the 21st century earlier. Well, the 21st century isn't coming, it's already here, and our students have the opportunity and challenge of living and working in a diverse and rapidly changing world. Schools need to prepare our young people to understand and address global issues. So what does a global education that develops global perspectives and global competence offer for students and teachers? In order to develop globally competent students, we also need to develop globally competent schools. And that's what our curriculums support schools in doing. Schools that support and model the culture and invest in global competence development in their curriculum. Preparing students for today's world requires not only that we think about what matters most for them to learn, but also what kind of teaching and learning will prove most effective. Being a globally competent teacher requires embracing a mindset translating personal global competence into professional classroom practice. And on the slide now, we're just sharing some of the pedagogical approaches embedded within our curriculums that support the development of what we call global competence. It's about reality of the world now. It's about understanding ourselves. And the three areas for teachers to develop are around disposition, knowledge, and skills. And just like any teaching practice, there's a continuum of learning to becoming a better practitioner. The tone we set in our classrooms can nurture students' curiosity and motivate them to learn. Start with classroom resources that represent the diversity of places and people around the world and in your own school community. And in the next part of the presentation, we'll just have a look at a selection of some practical examples. By embedding global competence, content knowledge within existing curricula or through specific courses, it can be integrated across all grades and does not need to be an add-on, an afterthought. Fieldwork Education has defined how to develop global competence, designing the SDG Challenge series, which further develops learner agency through the provision of exciting and relevant challenges linked to the Sustainable Development Goals. Teachers are guided by questions to focus learning on student inquiry, looking into a global issue related to the SDGs. You can see here just an example of some of the planning support provided in the thematic units for the Fieldwork Education curriculum. What we hope at Fieldwork is that global competence will add to the curriculum in a sense that children are capable of influencing change. We encourage schools to help students realise one person can have influence over others and to harness the learner agency for positive change. In teaching the SDGs, there are a number of resources available. Here's just some examples. The world's largest lesson. If you're wondering where to start, this is a good one. It's a free website collaborating with UNESCO and UNICEF, filled with lesson plans, videos, and ideas to implement the SDGs. Teach SDGs point to open and accessible resources, lesson plans, and global projects directly aligned. The SDG Academy is a group that creates and curates free open educational resources. And the Atlas of Sustainable Development Goals 2020 presents interactive storytelling and data visualizations. Go Goals provides a fun game to support learning, and Comics Uniting the Nations has multilingual comics related to the SDGs. These resources are all referenced in our curriculums so that teachers have direct links to them. Project-based learning, of course, can help students prepare for current reality by adapting new ways of teaching. Rather than giving tasks, teachers assign projects. The style can mimic the modern workplace, a collaborative environment where problem solving and creativity are crucial skill sets. Three keys to great learning, both online and in person here: relevance, agency, and high quality feedback. If we can't travel or even visit a library, how can we bring the world to our students? Well, again, there are many fun ideas to accomplish this. And in talking about this in the next couple of slides, Ben and David and Paul have already referenced some that sound incredibly exciting. Here are some other examples. Global Read Aloud. The premise is simple. A book is picked to read aloud to students during a 6-week period, and during that time, they try to make as many global connections as possible. Teachers can choose to connect with one class, others go for connecting with many classes across the world. Teachers invite a community of other educators to do a global project with them. At Fieldwork Education, we have a curriculum portal where schools can connect and work in collaboration in projects such as this. Book Creator has students making their own books. And of course, AR and VR technology can help bring experiences to life. And there's a picture there of some of our students in our international primary curriculum posing with the Mars rover as they undertake their Mission to Mars thematic unit. Field trips, virtual field trips, get students out into the world. We've heard some examples already. trips to museums, parks, historical sites, and more. These field trip tools can facilitate opportunities for students to communicate and share experiences when they can't make physical visits. They allow interaction and they provide dynamic environment in which students can explore, discover, experiment, and learn. The pandemic has highlighted two things: the necessity of educators and students to be able to utilize technology and the importance of global competence to make sense of the pandemic. Whenever young people connect through a virtual connection, they can learn about one another's lives, cultures, languages, faith, hopes, aspirations, interests, and passions. Providing students with a global audience helps to make their learning highly relevant. We heard mention and reference by Ben and Paul and David to service learning. Service learning is curriculum-based, can be a combination of courses in which students participate in sustained community service. Service projects can be designed to be online, involve tutoring of children, tutoring of others, newsletters, blog posts, setting up a business to address a need in the marketplace. I'm extending another thank you to Catherine Copeland from Global Education. She compiled this list of example resources, which I'm incredibly pleased to be able to share with you. I'll just give you a minute to read through, but links to things that I think would really help and support implementation of mainstream curriculum supporting holistic global competence. As we've acknowledged, the shock of COVID-19 on education has been unprecedented. I don't know how many times we've used that word in the last 2 years, but the education community, as we see it firsthand, day by day, has proved resilient, laying a groundwork for rebounding. There's unlimited drive, unlimited passion, and untapped resources that we can use for the restoration of our essential services. Huge thank you to Aaron and the team for the opportunity to participate in the seminar, and thank you for all for listening in, and I look forward to future discussions.
Thank you very much, Sarah. That's Sarah Blackmore from Fieldwork Education. We've got time for a few minutes of questions, and feel free to put them in the question and answer or straight into the chat. Sarah, I might just start. I realize, and I can see now why, that it's such a fast-growing primary school curriculum around the world. In fact, the fastest growing independent primary curriculum around the world. Are there plans for secondary curriculum or for curriculum for the senior years?
So we go as far as grade 9, Aaron, which is our middle years curriculum. And then our schools that run what we call our international middle years curriculum will then move on, majority of schools move on to IGCSE, and then possibly the IBD. We're constantly reviewing whether we should move into that sort of grade 10, grade 12 area. But at the moment, our main focus is on early years, primary and middle years. We feel that there's enough on offer in terms of the qualificatory qualifications without us stepping in there.
Excellent. And as a sort of a curriculum delivery provider, how does one actually become a fieldwork education school?
Yeah, it's a good question. Thanks, Aaron. So schools have two ways of joining and implementing our curriculum. They can become a subscription school, so they can subscribe to the curriculum. It gives them access to it and license to implement it. It includes training to support that implementation. But the other route, which is the one that we would recommend, is to join what we call our International Curriculum Association, because that ties in implementation of the curriculum with a quality assurance journey. And we support the school as it develops its implementation, as it builds its infrastructure to deliver an international curriculum. And that's increasingly becoming more and more important as the landscape of international schools has changed, and the growth is where we have local private schools delivering international education to local students. So those schools, you know, they have a real challenge to combine international education with national curriculum. and the requirements that they have to meet. So it's quite a weaving of learning goals and pedagogies. So with our International Curriculum Association, we offer mentor support to support schools on that journey.
Excellent. And then the final sort of touch piece on that is that what about ongoing sort of maintenance? Is there annual or, you know, a periodic cycles of renewal?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have 2 cycles. So as schools start their journey, they have, if it's a completely new school, over a period of 2 years, they will work towards recognition. And if they stay at recognition level, they will need to renew that every 2 years. So we will look at the quality of what they're doing every 2 years. There is an option, however, for them to progress to what we call full accreditation, which is a much deeper dive. We can do that in collaboration and cooperation with CIS, for example, and that's got a 4-year cycle.
Excellent. We just that's fantastic, Sarah. We'll just welcome any final questions. Feel free to put them in the chat now. I'm just going through the chat and I see there's some other resources that have been put in there. We also have the question and answer area. I think we had some earlier from Ben George. I think, Sarah, that's it. Thank you very much for your time now.
Thank you so much, Aaron.
Folks, we were going to have a 5-minute break where we could answer some more questions. What I propose we do, just looking at the clock, is we just have any final questions for Sarah, Ben George, or the Excursion team. And if there's no more questions, then we might roll straight into the Duke of Edinburgh's International Award. And at the end of all the sessions, we have a couple of short clips that we will play from various institutions. So, James, are you ready to go just about?
Yep, no problem, Aaron.
Here we go. Okay, so folks, I'm going to introduce James Etheridge now. James is the Operations Manager for the Duke of Edinburgh's International Award Foundation, which operates in more than 130 countries around the world. This is the same namesake Duke of Edinburgh who recently passed away, the Queen's husband, after a very, very long and illustrious life. To give you an idea of the global coverage of this scheme, in Australia alone, there are over 1,000 schools and award centres that can deliver this award. And certainly for myself, growing up in Australia, everybody knew of the Duke of Edinburgh scheme. However, in Vietnam, it's not very well known. So this is an opportunity to share that with a wider audience here. Over to you, James.
Great, thank you very much, Aaron, and it's fantastic to speak to everyone, and thank you very much for the opportunity to. Yeah, as Aaron said, this is an award which is running all the way around the world. We're in over 130 countries, and we're currently delivering to over 1 million young people around the world. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a bit of an outline of what the award's about, how it works, why it's so good, and then I'm also going to show you a bit about how we license entities and how you as a school can get involved. So let's get into it. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start off with a very short video which basically gives you what is the award in a nutshell. As I said, that's pretty much what the award does. And I hope that was, oops, sorry, I'm going to go through that again. I hope that was interesting. So Duke of Edinburgh's International Award is the world's leading youth achievement award, and it recognises that not all learning happens in the classroom. In fact, I'm sure you'd agree that often some of life's biggest learnings happen when you least expect them. It helps young people find their purpose, passion, and place in the world, and that's what the award's all about. We're here to help them develop resilience, adaptability, grit, determination, and to be ready for whatever the world throws their way. The award is available to all 14 to 24-year-olds, regardless of their background, culture, physical ability, skills, and interests. It's our ambition to make the award accessible to every eligible young person around the world, and we're off to a good start. As we mentioned, the award is currently operating in over 130 countries and territories around the world, and currently there's over 1.3 million participants taking part in their award. Every day, there are more than 1,800 new participants enrolled in the award, and each year, more than 180,000 volunteers give up their time to help these young people develop these skills. Since 1956, when the award started, millions of young people have had their lives changed by the award. As we saw in the video, there are various levels and sections of the award. So to briefly go through them, at 14, you can start with the Bronze Award, and that takes around 6 months to complete. Once you're 15, you can take part in the Silver Award, and that's a minimum of 12 months to complete. And at 16, you can take part in the Gold Award, and that takes 18 months to complete. There are various other rules and regulations around that, but very simply, that's how it works. But it doesn't mean that that's how it has to work. Someone who's 24 can start their Bronze Award if they want. There's no problem there at all. Each award has 4 sections where you have to develop a skill, get active in a physical recreation, do some voluntary service in your local community and give back, and undertake a journey with a group. When you do the Gold Award, you also have to undertake a residential project where you have to go somewhere out of your comfort zone with people who you don't know and undertake a project of some type, which is going to help you in the future or something which you're particularly interested in. I'm sure this is a slide which many of the education professionals here will be fully aware of and use on a daily basis, but this is the underlying aspect of how the award works. So in each of these sections, a young person chooses an activity, and within that activity, they then choose a goal to challenge themselves, and the goals have to be SMART. And what this means is that each award is very unique to the young person, the participant who's undertaking it. You could have an entire class of young people who are all doing the award and have all chosen exactly the same activities to do for each of their sections. But because they've chosen a specific award, a specific goal, which is very, very personal to them, it means that all of these awards are an entirely unique thing. And to give an example, it means that if you're going to be doing soccer for your physical recreation, it means that it's not just I'm going to turn up every week. It's that I'm actually trying to achieve something. I'm going to try and get from the second team to the first team, or I'm trying to increase my fitness, or I want to score some more goals, or I want to get my passing rate up. You know, there's got to be something measurable within that target for that young person to aim for. What exactly are we going to do? How are you going to measure this? Is this a goal that can actually be achieved? Is there someone that can help me do this? And is it going to be completed? And I can participate in it regularly throughout my award. And this is where the adults come in. So these young people, it's very much an individual award where they go out and do it themselves. And we encourage our leaders and award centres to let those young people get on with it as much as possible. And especially at gold level, where we really encourage them to run with it, basically. But the role of the award leader is as a mentor in this situation. It's the role of the award leader is to ensure that young person has chosen something which is suitable for them, that can be completed in the right amount of time, and that they have access to throughout their period. And that award leader as a mentor is someone where that young person can keep coming back to and ask questions, and ultimately the person who submits their award for sign off right at the end. The award is underpinned by 10 guiding principles, and this, as I said, this absolutely underpins everything that we do. The award is individual, as I said. It's non-competitive. We're not looking for 2 or 3 young people to be trying to outdo themselves on the award. It's their own thing. It's achievable. The very key thing is it's voluntary. We aren't looking for schools who are making this part of the curriculum. It's something which they must choose to do. It's developmental. It increases that young person's development, and they're a different person at the end of it, and that's why we do this. It's a balanced program. It's not something which they can focus on one thing. So what we're not looking for is for someone to do rugby for their physical and then rugby coaching for their service and rugby refereeing for their skills. It's something which is balanced across the board, and that means that they have a very rounded program. It's progressive. It gets harder as we go along, and that's a good thing. It's inspirational. People look at it and go, yeah, that's something I want to achieve. That's something I want to do. It requires persistence. The award is not something which can be completed in a short spurt of enthusiasm. It must take, as I said, for the gold award, it can take 18 months as a minimum. It's something which must be completed regularly and over a long period of time. And finally, it's enjoyable. And that is the whole reason that we do this. Why would we take part if it wasn't fun to do? So it doesn't only change the lives of the young people, it's the communities around them through the service and the adults who support them as well. And this is where it becomes interesting and important for schools. So everyone loves some stats. We all love stats, and it gives us a really good picture of what's going on. So we all do, the award does some very comprehensive research every year, and we put it out, and this is what we call the award in numbers around the world. So as a result of doing the award, 91% of people felt challenged, 93% tried something new, 57% believe they've changed as a person, and 80% feel they've been inspired, which is pretty amazing. Volunteering is enormous in today's society and something which we're really picking up on. And the award gives opportunities for all of these young people to give back to their communities, their schools, and even their own families. So in 2018, we had more than 7 million hours devoted to volunteering by participants. 25% have never volunteered before that, and 87% will continue to volunteer afterwards. 66% feel more part of their community, and 78% of those who volunteered less than once a month now will volunteer regularly. And then building on the health benefits and the positives there, 95% are going to continue regular exercise. 70% of those who've never exercised less than once a month before the award now exercise at least once a week after the award. 31% had never done an adventurous journey style activity before, and of those, 83% now intend to do one at least once a year. 56% of those who didn't practice a skill regularly before the award now plan to do it at least once a week. And then we look at the really good bits, and we all know from various websites that we all look for reviews on what we do. 88% of award holders would recommend the award to others. And I think all you got to do is look at that. Our biggest advertiser is word of mouth. People who've done the award will always tell people they had a great time and what they learned.
Was that right? I just felt a bit, because I was just reading it. I was trying to make it sound like I wasn't reading it, but
That's fine.
yeah, I probably heard the papers turning over, but I just had to. I didn't have time to be able to speak, and just they're just doing like sales pitches.
Sorry, Sarah, did you have a question there? Okay, so moving on to what's it worth? Why should you do this as a school, and why should the participants do it? So for the participants, the award is recognised and respected all over the world, and that is probably the key thing. This is something which if you undertake in Vietnam and you go to somewhere in the UK, USA, South Africa, anywhere, pretty much anywhere around the world. They'll understand what you've done and what the effort that you put into it was. Young people will learn new skills. They'll gain and develop passions for volunteering, sport, music, whatever they choose to do, they will gain and develop those passions. They will make friends. They'll learn to develop interpersonal relationships, which is what the Adventurous Journey section is all about. The award will assist with university applications. And finally, the award will show employers that you stand out from the crowd in job applications. For you as a school, you'll become a leader in non-formal education in your community and in your country. Running the awards shows that you're passionate about non-formal education, and in a country such as Vietnam at the moment, which has quite a small award penetration, you will be able to show that this is something that you're keen on doing. You'll be able to develop young people in ways that traditional curriculums can't. You'll be able to provide high quality CPD opportunities for your staff, and you'll become part of the worldwide award delivery community. Currently, there's as I said, there's over 130 countries running the award. Over 500 of those are independent schools, which aren't connected to national operators, which I'll come on to in a minute. A lot of schools will be, you hopefully will recognise this, the CAS programme, which a lot of schools will be offering, and this just shows how the award fits in with that and how you can use the award to complement things that you already do. So within a school, you need at least 2 people. So this is if you're looking at trying to run the award and you're thinking, what infrastructure do I need? You need 2 people, and that's all you need at the moment. So you need a license holder and an award coordinator. License holder is the head teacher, usually, and the award coordinator is the teacher in the school who wants to run the award. Award leaders, there must be at least 2 of them, and Adventurous Journey supervisors and assessors, there must be at least 2 of them. We provide all the training. It's very easy to access. All of these people, these are just hats. They're not actual people. So 2 people to run the awards, 2 award leaders, 2 award Adventurous Journey supervisors and assessors can all be the same people. What will it cost you as a school? And this is based on, so please note, I don't know what schools you're from, but this is based on an international school delivering an international curriculum in 2021. So there's an annual license fee. There's a participant registration fee, depending on which level of the award that young person's doing. And there are training fees for adults taking part. All the training is online. It's delivered every month, several occasions, and very easy to access. We have 3 different types of license which you can apply for as a school. So our main one is a national award operator, and that's where we license an entity within a country to run the award for everyone in that country. So for example, the UK is a national award operator, Australia, New Zealand, they're both national award operators. Where we don't have a national award operator, we have independent award centres, and that's where Vietnam is. So in Vietnam, we have independent award centres, which we refer to as IACs, and those are individually licensed entities which can apply to run the award to their own students only. So this is applicable to places such as schools, NGOs, youth clubs. So in Vietnam, we have 8 international schools running the award, and we have 1 NGO, which is Otis Consulting, which is the brand new one that we've just licensed, which is very exciting. The final one is an operating partner, which is more suitable for large multi-site organisations such as Scouts, Girl Guides, government departments and agencies, or networks of private schools. So this is where we work with a group of people on an operational level. The one that's most likely to be suitable for schools within this group is the Independent Award Centre licence. There are 10 steps to it. It's very simple. It can take as little as a few weeks to get licensed. It normally takes about 6 weeks for the full licensing process to be completed. As you'll see, the first port of call there is to complete the application form, and that just starts that conversation off. I'm going to leave this one up on the screen for a few seconds. If you would like, if this is something which you are interested in delivering in your school or interested in setting up, or even if you've just got some questions and you'd like some more info, take a shot of this, go to interward.org. There's loads of information on there. The QR code will take you directly to our brochure for becoming an independent award centre, which has all of the information that you need. And there's lots of links on there to ask more questions if you would like. I'm going to end it there and hand back to Aaron. And if anyone has any questions, please do let me know.
Fantastic, James, that was terrific. We've got a couple of questions in the chat. Check out more information about the award, yes. I just have one or two clarifying questions. When you say 2 people per school, is that like, that's all you need to run it, right? So
the very minimum. So the award is as flexible, the IAC license is as flexible as your school needs to be. So if you're a small school or you're only planning on running a small award, then you need 2 trained award leaders, and that's our license minimum. To give you an idea, I've got some very small schools which only have, they maybe have 10 participants and 2 adults running the award. All the way down to, I've got a school in Thailand which is running the award to 400 students with about 30 trained people. So basically the idea is that the model can be as flexible as your school needs to be, but to start up, you just need 2 people.
Excellent. And do schools normally put a designated coordinator into the school, or is that like a voluntary thing that teachers might do?
So the coordinator is the person, is our port of call with that school. So that what we refer to as the award coordinator is like the award manager at that school. That one of those award leaders will be designated as the award coordinator, and they will be the person that receives all the information from us and is my day-to-day contact with that school.
That's terrific. And I'm not actually sure about this. Is it ever compulsory, or is it only ever voluntary for school students to do within an individual
It should
school?
only ever be voluntary.
Right.
I'm aware that there are a lot of schools which very much encourage it, but it's something which, as part of the license, has to be voluntary. It's something which young people should want to choose to do rather than being forced to. Something which I realized I didn't speak about was COVID, and I'll cover it very, very quickly. Obviously, a lot of the award is about doing activities and hopefully trying to get out in the outdoors and doing those journeys and expeditions. Over the last 18 months, we've been developing what we're calling temporary requirements, which actually at the moment allow young people to start and finish the award completely from home. So if you are locked down, as many people are at the moment, this is actually a fantastic opportunity to get young people to have something to focus on while they are stuck at home. And we've had some really good feedback from head teachers about how well that's gone. So if that's a potential barrier or stumbling block for you, then please let me reassure you that isn't something which you need to be concerned about.
Terrific. There's one question and answer in here, and it says, is Outward Bound Vietnam eligible for the adventure section of the awards? Yes, we're one provider of the adventurous journey in Vietnam, but there are several others as well. There's, I believe, Phat Tire in the middle of Vietnam, in Dalat, is a provider, and I believe there are some other ones as well. Yeah. Thank you very much for your time. You know, wrapping up, I'd just like to say that back in Australia, when kids were finishing school and applying for jobs, everybody was so competitive with, oh, I've got a bronze, I've got a silver, I've got a gold certificate that I can put in my resume to help go to the next job interview. And I think that's one of the most exportable parts of the Duke of Edinburgh Award. It really is a great way to help a student get that extra step forward when they're entering the workforce, or even just entering university and so forth. Okay, James, thank you very much for your time. That brings us now to the final presenter for today, Tiffany Fernie here. Tiffany is an outdoor educator who's been based in Hong Kong, Canada, and Vietnam. She's presenting on Leave No Trace. She's a Leave No Trace master educator and is currently in Hong Kong, relocating to New Zealand to work in St Cuthbert's College, Auckland. I have a disclosure. She has been working here in Vietnam with myself in Outward Bound Vietnam for the last few years, but she is now received a scholarship to study, in fact, a full teacher training scholarship at the University of Waikato, and will be studying there while she is also working at St Cuthbert's College. St Cuthbert's is widely regarded as one of the leading schools in New Zealand. Tiffany, over to you.
Thanks, Aaron. Hope you guys are all doing well. Thank you guys so much for your time today. I'm just going to share my screen quickly, and we'll start off with a little clip from Leave No Trace to help you guys get a bit of a gist of what Leave No Trace is all about.
There's sound there, Tiffany?
Is there sound? Can you guys not hear it?
No sound yet.
Okay. Let's see if we can go now. There we go. How's that for sound now?
No sound.
No, still no sound. No worries. Can you guys hear me though?
Can do, yes.
Awesome. Cool. So yeah, thanks Aaron for the introductions. I'm here to talk to you.
Trace. Leave No Trace is an international
organization. So what I'll do is we'll go through a bit of an introduction about myself and Leave No Trace and a bit of the history about it. And then I'll talk to you guys about the framework of it so you can better understand how Leave No Trace can be implemented in your schools, how Leave No Trace can help with teachers and excursions, and then all the available training that's in Vietnam. So as Aaron mentioned, I'm a master educator and I've been a master educator since 2016. I've been fortunate enough to run awareness workshops and trainer courses in Hong Kong, Canada, and Vietnam. And I've also co-instructed a master educator course in Vietnam in early 2020 before the pandemic really hit. Don't worry if you're not too familiar with the terms awareness workshop and trainer and master educator. I'll talk to you guys all about them as we go through. So about Leave No Trace. Leave No Trace is a non-for-profit organization that provides programs, education, training, and outreach in all 50 states of the US, as well as in over 100 countries around the world. It believes in using science, education for all, and stewardship to promote the sustainable use of the outdoors and the planet. And it truly believes that people are the solution to conservation. So that's the key message that we're trying to get through today. The history of Leave No Trace is that it actually started in 1982 in response to the misuse of the outdoors in the Unita Mountains, I hope I'm saying that right, based in Utah. So the forest rangers there noticed a significant amount of damage as the mountain range got more and more popular among visitors. So in that time, they developed a No Trace program amongst themselves that they spread very quickly to many parts of the US. And by 1990, a man called Bill Thompson became the first Leave No Trace coordinator to promote the national program. And he approached NOLS, so the National Outdoor Leadership School, who some of you guys might have heard of before, to help spread the support or spread the word of Leave No Trace throughout the US. And by 1994, the Leave No Trace was incorporated in Colorado. And then by 2001, it's the body that we know it as today, which is Leave No Trace Center for Outdoor Ethics. The center now oversees all public outreach and education and fundraising for the National Leave No Trace program, whereas NOLS is still in charge of the curriculum and education side of things. So a little framework for Leave No Trace. The framework is it has awareness workshops where people can attend for a minimum of 30 minutes. There's no age limit or prerequisites, and it's taught by Leave No Trace trainers. These awareness workshops certify students and adults and teachers alike as Leave No Trace ambassadors. So there's a full certificate that comes with it. And these can also be done online. The next level up, which most teachers would be striving towards, is the trainer courses. And these are a minimum of 16 hours of experiential instruction with 10 hours in the field. So it means you should camp overnight for at least one night, but if that's not possible, then you should spend at least 2 days in the outdoors practicing and teaching minimal impact ethics. The trainer courses are taught by master educators. And then once you're a certified Leave No Trace trainer, you can run awareness workshops for students at no cost, or any cost that you or your school sees fit. And then you can also co-instruct future trainer courses. Finally, the last step is a master educator course. And master educators typically go for a 5-day expedition style course. And it's taught by a master educator from Knowles or the Appalachian Mountain Club Trail. These are the only 2 authorized organizations to host master educator courses. But you can co-instruct a master educator course if you are already a master educator outside of those organizations. And then master educators can run awareness workshops and trainer courses as well. Now, the cost of all these workshops and courses is entirely dependent on the actual school yourself. Leave No Trace doesn't charge any fees for the school to run these courses, apart from your own sign-on fee for the master educator course. And the bulk of that fee actually just comes from bringing in the guys from Knowles to whatever country you're in to run these. So once you're part of the system, all these training courses and workshops all follow a training agreement, and each course has its individual curriculum. So once you're a trainer, there's a really easy and comprehensive guide onto how to run awareness workshops, and same for master educators running trainer courses. And then all 3 of these things are externally qualified with certificates for the participants. So I hope that gives you a bit of an understanding on the actual framework itself and how it can be implemented. Ooh, a little bit of a lag there. There we go. So with the 7 principles of Leave No Trace, each of the courses discusses each of these principles, and the key is to share these principles with the wider community. As awareness workshop ambassadors, the Leave No Trace ambassadors will know the 7 principles, and that is the prerequisite, or that is the commitment to pass the course. Leave No Trace trainers will understand how to teach these principles to others, and then master educators will be able to teach these to other people and also practice these themselves. So our first principle is plan ahead and prepare. All these principles are designed to be super easy, super digestible, so that people from really young ages can grasp the importance of them. Second one is travel and camp on durable surfaces, followed by dispose of waste properly, followed by leave what you find, minimize campfire impact, respect wildlife, and finally be considerate of other visitors. So within the Leave No Trace organization, there is an education subcommittee. So when Leave No Trace was first started, there was only 6 principles. But after the subcommittee reviewed the 6 principles, they actually added on be considerate of other visitors to really reflect the mission of Leave No Trace. So some of the problems that Leave No Trace as an organization we solve are trash natural areas. So that can be things like organizing trash cleanups, that can be through making timeline resources of how long it takes for things to decompose. Another one would be polluted water, misinformation in the outdoors, which is really prevalent at the moment, especially with the rise of social media and people going to beautiful locations. Wildlife at risk, damaged trails, destructive fires, connecting youth to nature, and crowded parks. So Leave No Trace as an organization has an extensive library of resources available to everybody. You don't have to be a member or a trainer or an ambassador to access all these resources. So for teachers, why would you want Leave No Trace as a qualification? Or why would you as a school want your teachers to be qualified in Leave No Trace? So the Leave No Trace 7 principles can be linked to various different subject curriculums, and it provides alternative hands-on activities that can be used inside and outside the classroom. So it's just different ways for teachers to engage the students, no matter if they're on excursion or in the classroom. It's a really great method to connect youth to nature, as teachers are already people that students trust. So the advice coming from teachers. If teachers are already interested in nature and they're teaching their students, you can get a lot more buy-in as to why minimal impact practices are more appropriate and also connecting people to nature. Teachers, you guys are also a great source, a reliable source of information for students. With the rise of social media, as I said earlier, there's a lot of people that see a beautiful location on Instagram and they think, oh, I'd love to follow that and go along. Teachers, you guys can help clarify to students how to get there safely and how to, what the trip entails. So to help students actually plan ahead and prepare properly to go to these beautiful locations themselves. Finally, it's an additional qualification for all educators to have to learn about environmental protection in an engaging manner. In terms of excursions, Leave No Trace qualified teachers can help, embody all of the principles, and one of them would be planning ahead and preparing. I know in a lot of excursions, it's great to research ahead the popular times to avoid crowds. In part of planning ahead and preparing, you can also make sure that you're not in the same place at the same time as loads of other people, because with the crowds, we have a lot of accrued damage. So not only do crowds mean a danger to nature itself, but they can also mean a danger to our students. So we'd like to make sure that when we are on our excursions, we're going to places where we've got like a most quiet time as possible. For excursions, teachers, you guys can also teach all the principles to your students, and you can apply them to your excursion by getting the students to get involved. So as part of that planning ahead and preparing, if each student is fully aware of how much their own impact, and they're trying to minimize it themselves, then it can really make a collective effort to, as a group, minimize your overall impact in the excursion. Finally, it's a great way to help students understand that teachers who are qualified Leave No Trace trainers will be taught that Leave No Trace is on a spectrum. There is no such thing as perfect activism, nor do we expect it. So as teachers, you can really help communicate that message towards your students and just help people understand that it's do what you can within your means. We're not asking people to go extreme. We're not asking everyone to go vegan. It's just do what you can within your means. And finally, as Leave No Trace trainers or master educators, you'd be able to provide your students with a certificate that says that they are Leave No Trace ambassadors or Leave No Trace trainers. To wrap up, I'm going to give you guys an idea of how you guys can get this training in Vietnam. So at the moment, Outward Bound Vietnam offers awareness workshops. These are also virtual as well as in person and can be conducted in Vietnamese or English. There's an open enrollment via the Outward Bound website, and then private group arrangements are also available. OBV also offers trainer courses based in Ha Long and Binh Dinh, again, are available in Vietnamese and English. So you just need to get in touch with the Outward Bound Vietnam team to help there. And finally, for master educator courses, if you want your teachers to become master educator qualified, then again, Outward Bound Vietnam can help you with that process, help guide you with that process. But the best way is to get in touch with the National Outdoor Leadership School in the US to see if they can organize flying someone over. At this moment in time, obviously international travel is extremely restricted. So I do believe that Leave No Trace is working on online options for people to get certified while the travel restrictions are in place. But with the master educator course, you definitely do need to find a master educator that is already in your country to help you run that. And then as for schools becoming Leave No Trace partnership schools, you have to just go online. It's super easy to find the information. You go online and there's a big link that says becoming a partner. And basically what that entails is paying an annual membership fee. And you get access to a whole host of resources for different lessons and different quizzes and things like that for your students, as well as access to the Leave No Trace logo and to be able to use that in all of your social media and marketing as well. So that's kind of my gist on Leave No Trace. If you guys have any questions, I believe we have some time for that as well.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. That was the presentation on Leave No Trace. I'm just looking at the chat box. We've got no questions that have come in yet, but I've got one just to start off. Tiffany, can Leave No Trace be taught on a school campus? And if so, how?
Yeah, so Leave No Trace awareness workshops can definitely be taught on a school campus. Trainer courses can also use the school campus as a base and then travel outside of the school campus to little local parks, nearby parks or things like that to get the trainer workshop through. The Master Educator courses, however, do need to be run in field in as remote locations as possible as your situation allows. But it goes back to what I said earlier about perfect activism and Leave No Trace on a spectrum. Everything Leave No Trace does is according to your needs and what you have within your means and your school's means. So they're definitely very, very flexible with that.
Terrific. And one more question that I've got. Obviously, we've spoken a little bit about camping and field trips, but what about just for excursions? Is there a place in Leave No Trace just for excursions off-site?
Yeah, there's definitely a place for Leave No Trace and excursions. So excursions definitely means anything to do with just stepping outside of your school campus as a place for Leave No Trace. Anytime you can think about asking your students to plan ahead for something, planning ahead for the excursion, how to pack for it, making sure you're walking on the correct paths during your excursion. You can definitely tie in all 7 Leave No Trace principles very clearly to any excursion. And then sometimes you might need to think outside the box, but that's where the whole host of Leave No Trace resources available online can help you there too.
Terrific. And I've got one question that's come in on the chat box. Does Leave No Trace offer online courses in such COVID impacted situations?
Yeah, so Leave No Trace, the different partner schools can offer awareness workshops online. Outward Bound Vietnam is currently doing that, offering awareness workshops online. And trainer courses, I'm not entirely sure if Outward Bound Vietnam's offering them online yet, but it's very easy to ask your closest provider. So in Vietnam at the moment, it would be Outward Bound Vietnam. And they can get in touch with Leave No Trace. And from there, the 2 organizations will work together to try and find out what the best means is for going forward with online workshops.
Terrific, Tiffany. For those of us who've spent a bit of time in the outdoors in Vietnam, we can fully appreciate how much potential need there might be for a scheme like Leave No Trace in Vietnam for problems from things such as the plastics in the oceans through to general litter and waste management and so forth. So I've got one more question I think that's just come in on the chat here. So thank you for the great presentation and helpful information there. We'd really encourage schools themselves to try and adopt Leave No Trace rather than go through third-party vendors like Outward Bound or other ones, because it is such a great scheme that is part of the greater good. Tiffany, thank you very much for your time. Folks, that concludes all the presentations we have, but what we're going to do is just open the floor up for some final questions or comments to any of the presenters from today. All right, folks, I don't see any more questions coming into either the chat or the Q&A. We did have a couple of clips that we were considering playing. What we might do is just wrap up shortly and then play 1 or 2 clips on the outtake. But just to conclude first for today, I'd like to thank all the presenters and the institutions they represent. These presentations will all be uploaded to the AusCham YouTube channel next week, and you can connect directly with any of these presenters to explore opportunities further. If you don't have their contact details, you can also come through Ms. Nan or AusCham's Education Committee for those connections. Folks, Vietnam is a rapidly emerging educational market. There's well over 100 international schools here now, and they're expanding rapidly every year. It's my general observation that across the secondary school sector, there's a high focus on academic curriculum, and there's also a high focus on bricks and mortar. But these holistic learning aspects are perhaps less emphasized. And so today was meant to be an introduction to various opportunities that you might like to explore in your school. As with all learning, the best thing that we can offer is the opportunity, and it's up to you if you think this is right for yourself and your school. And if so, we hope that you can take that further. It would be great to see more of these adopted across Vietnam. Just a big picture, AusCham Vietnam is looking to convene an annual in-person education expo each year. We did an online event in 2021. We are looking at doing in-person events in Ho Chi Minh City and in Hanoi, which will include representation from the secondary, vocational and tertiary sectors. We're very open to any themes that may be available there. EdTech has emerged as one very popular theme, but we also recognize that themes such as holistic learning may also be really useful at a venue such as that. Please keep that annual conference in your back of your mind, keep it in view for when the pandemic is behind us. We're looking at convening that each August or September every year. Folks, on behalf of AusCham Vietnam, thank you for your time today. We're going to wrap up there. Rather than log off, we're just going to stay on channel if anybody has any final questions. And if not, with Nan, we may play a final outtake video for you all. Thanks, folks. Have a great afternoon.
You all know what it's like taking kids on excursions. There's so much going on and so much to think about. Is everyone on the bus? Does everybody have a hat? Does anyone have a special diet? Do I have the right medications? Is everyone listening to the tour guide? Why are the kids climbing on that priceless statue? With so many things to remember and endless distractions, it can be hard to keep on top of everything going on around you. As a result, it's easy to accidentally miss an important detail like a medication that must be given, or to follow up on a student who's been unwell. Don't leave it to paper-based systems or manually trying to manage your phone's alarm. If you accidentally overlook something, the child's safety can be put at risk and expose the school to liability. Excursion takes the worry and stress out of all those added distractions that can test even the most experienced teachers. Alerts trigger when medications are due. Follow-up reminders prompt you if you've treated a student who's sick or injured. And dynamic action plans for students with special needs are always at your fingertips. Excursion mobile app helps you provide the highest possible duty of care no matter where you are or what you're doing. Excursion is the perfect support tool whenever you take kids away. Make your next excursion safer, less stressful, and much easier to manage.
Okay, everybody. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. I hope it's been really useful. Presenters, thank you very much for your time as well. It was fantastic. Each of these was just a terrific presentation to share and very informative. We'll welcome any feedback and follow up via email, and we'll also share any queries that we get via email as well from both Nan and myself. Thanks. We've had no more questions come in. Just some thanks all around for everybody. So everybody stay safe and stay sane during this pandemic, and we look forward to when it's all behind us and we're back in person again. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks very much, Aaron. Cheers.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. See you later.
Thanks,
Bye.
Aaron. Bye.